How many of you love sitting down at a restaurant and biting into a nice, juicy hamburger? Of those of you that raise your hand, how many of you actually think about where your hamburger came from before it was sitting in front of you? Chances are it came from a factory farm hundreds of miles away. I have been a vegetarian for 22 years, mostly for animal rights reasons, but it wasn't until college that I truly grasped the understanding that the meat industry does much more damage than just being mean to animals. Today, I will be telling you about how the factory farming industry in the United States affects the lives of animals, the environment, and the economy. First, I will share with you a little bit about the life of animals on factory farms. By definition, a factory farm is a large industrial operation that raises a large number of animals for food. Over 99% of farm animals in the U.S. are raised on factory farms, which focuses on profit at the expense of animal welfare. According to the ASPCA in a polling, 94% of Americans agree that animals raised for food should be treated in good conditions, free from abuse and cruelty. Yet, the majority of nearly 10 billion farm animals raised each year suffer from conditions that consumers would not accept if they could only see them. Giant corporations have found that they can make more money by squeezing as many animals as possible into tiny spaces, even though many of those animals die from disease or infection due to poor living conditions. At just 2 to 3 weeks old, piglets are removed from their mothers and placed in large, windowless sheds without fresh air, sunlight, or outdoor access. Their pens are too small and too crowded for movement or exercise. Ammonia fumes within the pens rise to dangerous levels due to the pig's waste. Most beef cattle spend their lives on crowded feedlots with hundreds of other cows. Here, they are branded, castrated, and have their horns removed without the use of any painkillers. It is rare for these feedlots to provide adequate shelter or pasture, so cattle are forced to live in the ice, mud, and their own waste. Dairy cows produce around 100 pounds of milk each day due to growth hormones. This is 100 times the amount cows should produce naturally on their own. Most people don't realize that just like humans, cows only produce milk when they give birth. When a calf is born, it is taken from its mother the same day, which is a very traumatic experience for the mother and baby. The mother's milk is collected, and the male calves are taken to be raised for veal, while the female calves become dairy cows themselves. Although cows can typically live for 18 to 20 years, dairy cows are taken to the slaughterhouse at age 5 when their milk production has slowed and they are no longer useful to the industry. According to the University of Arkansas, if humans grew at the same rate we grew chickens, a 6.6-pound newborn baby would weigh 660 pounds after 2 months. Meat chickens are raised in large sheds housing 20,000 or more chickens at a time. To keep them eating and growing, farms restrict the chickens from sleeping by keeping the lights on most of the time. As they grow, overcrowding and competition for space increases. This constant interaction makes sleep even harder. As chickens die, their bodies are often left among the living, only contributing to the stress and unhygienic conditions. Now that you know a little bit about the living conditions of animals on these farms, I'm going to tell you about how factory farming is detrimental to our environment. Air pollution in the U.S. is largely affected by factory farming. Over 37% of methane emissions result from factory farms. Methane emissions are a huge problem because this gas has a global warming potential 20 times higher than that of carbon dioxide alone. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that confined farm animals generate more than 450 million pounds of manure annually. This is 3 times the amount of waste produced by Americans. Deforestation is another environmental factor affected by industrial agriculture. In the United States alone, 260 million acres of forests have been cleared for crop fields and to raise livestock. Deforestation for this purpose has been estimated to emit over 2.4 billion tons of CO2 every year. The antibiotics and hormones given to animals on factory farms can be harmful to overall public health. Antibiotics used to make animals grow faster have been proven to lead to antibiotic-resistant bacteria that can threaten human life. Antibiotic resistance can be defined as the ability of bacteria and other microorganisms to resist the effects of the antibiotic they were once sensitive to. In 2010, Dr. Thomas R. Frieden, director of the CDC, stated before Congress, "There is a strong scientific evidence of a link between antibiotic use in food animals and antibiotic resistance in humans." Most recently, in 2012, The FDA stated, the misuse and overuse of antimicrobial drugs creates selective evolutionary pressure that enables antimicrobial resistant bacteria to increase in numbers more rapidly than antimicrobial susceptible bacteria, and thus increases the opportunity for individuals to become infected by resistant bacteria. This is a lot of information, but basically the FDA is saying that the harmful bacteria are becoming accustomed to the drugs because of high exposure on factory farms. When we consume this bacteria in the meat we eat, it can cause us to get very sick. So far, I have told you about factory farms' effects on animals and the environment. Lastly, I will share with you its relationship with the economy. The meat industry tells consumers that factory farms are modern, efficient, and produce cheap food. But factory farms leave consumers with fewer choices and make them pay more for meat and dairy products while farmers are getting paid less. Huge meat companies have driven down the prices that farmers receive for livestock they raise, forcing many farmers out of a job. The economy of many small communities is heavily impacted by the presence of factory farms. Homeowners living near factory farms have proven that their homes have lost significant value due to the facilities. People living close to these farms have also reported illness due to toxic gas emissions and an infestation of rodents and flies in their homes. Locally owned family farms tend to buy things like feed, supplies, and building materials from other local businesses, while factory farms buy them outside the region while paying workers very low wages. This causes little to no economic growth for local economies. In conclusion, today's industrial agriculture industry produces negative effects on the lives of animals, the environment, and the economy. We as a society have total control of how these factors will affect our planet in the future. I encourage you to purchase local organic meat, support organizations who are against factory farming, and support animal rights, and if you're feeling really crazy, become a vegetarian.